Okay, now the session officially begins. Today, this session, we have a new vocabulary. And that is called new technology nationalism. And I think that is a fair topic on the current background. And we know that in the past 3 decades to 4 decades, the major trend in the world is globalization, which encourage all countries in the world to get connected with each other, to cooperate with each other, and especially in the technology sphere. We know with the emergence of internet, we have a tighter and tighter connection with each other. But in the recent years, there is also a process of anti-globalization. And that is also include the technologies. And I know what you know what I'm talking about, something that happened recently, which triggered a lot of discussion. And for today, in our session, we're not really talking about the technologies that have been developing, but what we're going to talk about is about the competition and cooperation of those strategic technologies. And today, we have the honor to invite distinguished panelists on the stage with me. We have the Minister of Information and Communication Technology of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and also 2 guests from the technology companies. And over there, we also have a guest from the China's Academy of Science, and he's an expert on strategic consulting. So for the session, I think we're going to spend the first 30 minutes to talk about the topic with the panelists, and with another 20 minutes or 30 minutes, we would like to open the floor to the audience. And all of your questions will be welcomed to the panelists.
First, so in the context of this globalization, I mean, the new word is techno-nationalism. I mean, so in Iran, so Minister, how would you, what is your take on the issue?
Okay, thank you for the invitation, and I'm glad to have this opportunity today to discuss about this issue with you. Actually, today we face a dual policy in the world by globalization and techno-nationalism. Some countries and companies, when they actually, let me first figure something and clarify something. If we discuss about the emerging strategic technology, I mean AI, IoT, and 5G, they are similar to a car, and they need a fuel. The fuel is data of people. This dual policy is occurred here, where big companies and countries need information and data of people. They believe to globalism. And then when they want to monetizing themselves, to develop technologies that are very important for them, they believe to techno-nationalism. This is a paradox, actually. Different countries and different areas have different idea about these issues. Actually, these 2 terms have some paradox inside. We cannot believe to globalism and concurrently believe to techno-nationalism. When they gather the information of the people and users and also different groups addict to their services, now they try to change their point of view, and today say that techno-nationalism is our strategy. Different areas have different policy about them. For example, Europe today follow the GDPR for protecting the data of their subscriber and their people. And this is a strategy that, for example, President Macron say that we believe to unilateralism on cyberspace. For developing cyberspace, we believe to unilateralism. But only the action that Europe have against this kind of behavior was data protection, the operational one. There is many things on the table, but the operational one is GDPR. But I think it's not sufficient, and it doesn't work completely. The strategy of China and US in this strategy are same, actually. There is no difference. China have a good asset, and that the best asset that they have is their population, their subscriber. And for the other countries, they haven't enough subscriber and also population that can enrich them about this kind of technology. Then also in Iran, we are working on that. Actually, because of sanction, we have to pay attention to techno-nationalism and work on that. Because of sanction, many companies and countries do not give us the technology. And we have to develop many kind of technology by ourselves. And also this is one danger of techno-nationalism for the world. For example, today, Apple decided to eliminate Iranian application from the App Store. Why? Because it's their regulation. It's because of their national rule. They decided by national rule for international countries and also for the other countries. What about the globalization? We think that we should find a way, not complete globalization. That means the globalization, that means that all people in the world give their information to this kind of companies. We should regulate it and also somehow respect to the technologies that develop in the countries, and we should find a way. I have some proposal, and in the second part of my discussion, I will pay to it.
So let me understand a little bit more on the Iran's case. So currently under the sanction, so the companies, technological companies in Iran, you don't really have a lot of interactions, cooperations with international companies. I mean, like the companies in the United States and Europe.
Actually, when we monitor the Iran market, we see a big jump during these 3 years. Now, about 27% of Iranian young people that graduated from the universities are connected to ICT field. It means that we have a big capacity of talent that are available in Iran today. Also, for the market, we have 80 million population. 70 million of them are connected to the broadband. All cities are covered. I mean, when I say all cities, I mean 1,242 cities, and also 78% of 60,000 villages in Iran connected to 3G and 4G today.
Oh, okay.
And the literacy rate is very good in Iran. And then we have a potential market, good market. During last 3 years, more than 250,000 Iranian applications developed for mobile phone. Today, 2 of our companies are becoming unicorn, and their size and their value will reach to more than $1 billion US dollar. It means that the activity of Iranian startups are very good. Iranian parliament and also the government passed a law for startups that in 18th of July we will announce it, and another strategy for the government to support young people. Till now, sanctions haven't a big impression on us. In some cases, that was good for our startups. Why? Because it exclusively keep our market for our startups. But for the second step, maybe they face some problems. About the international cooperation, after the unilateralism that some government follow that, some companies stopped their services to Iranian companies. For example, cloud services, platforms, same as, for example, App Store, they stop giving service to Iranian
So they
companies.
just stop supplying services to Iran
But
companies.
Iranian companies start to making it by themselves.
Oh, okay.
And we do not face any big problem for our startups. Actually, when the rate of growth of other sectors of economy in Iran after sanction going down, our sector do not face this problem, and in last year we experienced a growth rate of 2.5% annually.
Okay, Minister, so you are saying that you are forced into nationalism. Let's assume that if a sanction is lifted, I mean, would you encourage the Iranian companies to go international, to cooperate, let's say, with the United States companies? I mean,
Today we take care about the international relationship. Iranian startups have a relation with international companies. Today we are targeting a regional group for expanding our market with our friends. We are working on a group that Turkey, Azerbaijan, Russia, and Iran are included to make a market, a bigger market for ourselves, to prepare some economical benefit for this kind of company that are located in these countries to develop their market in this kind of countries. And we do not stop ourselves again in front of the sanction. Then the international relationship is very important for a startup, for exchanging the experience, for having a bigger market, for helping each other. And also, it's very useful that I mentioned that ICT is still not part of the sanction.
Oh, okay. Okay, so Jay, so you're an American company. I mean, you're multinational, right? I mean, so what is your take on this resurgence of this nationalism in the technology field? I mean,
so I think I'll start by saying that the phenomena of globalization is not reversible. I mean, the essence of unipolar or bipolar world is not there anymore. It is a multipolar world. So as far as technology is concerned, I am a technologist, so I can emphasize that aspect. Scaling on 5G, on IoT, on AI, blockchain, any of these technologies will continue with the velocity that it is happening today. In fact, the velocity will only exponentially accelerate. The reason is because compute, storage, foundational ingredients of compute, storage, and networking technologies are becoming more and more price performance competitive. So better value realization for everybody, a larger societal impact will continue to happen. So technology-wise, the acceleration will continue, new ways of working, new price performance values. But at the same time, the people and the process aspect is also very important. If you look at through history and through the generations of technology transformation, we are in the fourth industrial revolution. The people always want to learn, are curious. It is not constrained to a particular part of the world. Everybody wants to innovate. Innovation is not my only prerogative, it's a global phenomenon. Everybody can come out with new ideas, new products, new services, new capabilities, and apply them for the benefit of their own and the rest of the world. So from a skilling people, reskilling, adopting new technologies, and learning, you can't slow that down. The third part about process is equally important. I think Michelle and I were talking earlier about how academics can work and collaborate in a multi-stakeholder environment so easily, globally. It's not something that gets prevented. If you look at interoperability of standards, multiple standards will always be there. But the interoperability phenomena is also universal. But all these hassles around that are happening today have to do with more governance and have to do with pent-up frustrations on economic imbalances and all that. But that is not something that I have a specific say in. I can focus on the technology aspects and the people and skill development aspect and clearly believe that there is nothing stopping it. Innovation will continue, globalization will continue, it will continue to be a multipolar world.
Okay.
Well, and one thing that I would just say on this point is, the internet is fairly new innovation, 25 years old, and it has been the technologists who have driven that forward. And the question is, over the next 10 years, whether technology is going to become all about policy. And I think we're kind of at this interesting crossroads where it's hard to imagine a world where we're not going to be more connected around the world. And so these policy questions keep coming up. And so we need the policymakers to understand more about the technology, and we need the technologists to understand more of the implications on the policy side. And I feel like we're in these murky waters right now, and very early. But that's why forums like the World Economic Forum that bring these multi-stakeholders together, the G20 that just happened on the weekend, and all these other venues where you do bring, whether it's the academic institutions or these other institutions that bring the technologists, the policymakers, the government officials together to have the conversations is really critical, because this isn't going to go away. It's actually going to get more complicated. And as with many policy things, there are very few silver bullets. I think there are very few easy wins. There's going to be a lot of difficult conversations and to going forward. And I think that's really an important point to bring up.
Oh, okay. Well, I look at your company. I mean, you're providing services also in the securities field, right? I mean, so currently a lot of policies, I mean, some government, I mean, is in the context of protecting its own securities. I mean, so I think that's a sort of a excuse, I mean, for the initiation of policies against globalization or to make certain technology fragmented, only be in certain area or countries. I mean, so since you're in the security business, I mean, the technology. So how do you view the current policies or initiatives in this regard?
Well, there's no doubt that there is absolutely value in coordination across the world and having a set defined rules that companies can then play by in certain cases. And I mean, really, the internet was built on this cooperation system, and it transcends borders. And if you, it's a fairly new innovation that transcends borders, which is why I think it brings up so many interesting policy discussions that are difficult. And whether it's payment processors around the world to help fight corruption or fraud, I mean, the fact that the payment processing system is global, I think is better, versus if it was much more regional, you'd have much more fraud and graft and corruption. And so there are lots of cases where you see the benefit of a global connected world, and I think cybersecurity is one. With cybersecurity specifically, if you can leverage the data across many surface area of the world, you can help protect more businesses and people and the citizens of the world. And at the end of the day, it's data. Cybersecurity is all about data. The more data points you have about who are legitimate versus illegitimate actors online, the better you can help protect the legitimate users and give them a better experience. And then you can better increase the friction for the illegitimate actors. And I feel like that's all a very good thing. And so cybersecurity absolutely is it's something that happens to every business, every citizen of the world. It's consumer or business, it's top of mind. And again, you want a set of global policies that help move the conversation forward, because I think there is a technology solution to it that transcends borders. And we see that daily. But again, back to my point of, but there are policy things that come up in these discussions, because what you hear is, okay, what about the law enforcement agencies locally who want to be able to do their jobs, right? Back to the data point that the minister was bringing up. And I think these are really real conversations, but the important thing is to bring the group together to have a dialogue around it. And while they're hard conversations, these conversations are taking place. And I think that's a good thing. And so while it's important we talk about it and whatnot, but it's really to have these conversations to help move the conversation forward. And I will say that I've been encouraged to see the government, the law enforcement agencies, the private sector come together cross borders, whether it's European, whether it's American, whether it's different parts of the world, to have the conversations. I think that engagement is encouraging and one that I'd like to see continue.
Oh, okay. So you're an internationalist. I mean, you ought to be appointed as a minister in the U.S. on the technology.
Minister Zatlin, right?
Yes, that sounds very beautiful.
No, it's much above my pay grade. As an entrepreneur who's benefited from the global nature of the internet, I mean, our company is fairly young. We're 9 years old as a business, and the fact that we were students when we started this business. We were able to have a good idea, assemble the right group of people to make it happen, and now we help protect a lot of businesses and people online from cybersecurity attacks, from making their experience better. I mean, that's pretty incredible story of the number of people we employ, or how we help make the internet better. And I think that lots of countries want to see that. I mean, the minister of Iran was talking about 2 unicorns in his country from the benefit of having the internet or technology. I think lots of countries want that, and this is, a way to do that. There's a lot of economic upside for countries.
Oh, okay. Well, now you have a presence in China. I mean, your office in Beijing.
Yes.
Hope you can do well. I mean.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
潘教授，这个
Okay, Professor Pan, it's your turn. After listening to the comments by the previous 3 speakers, including the minister from Iran and our 2 guests from the business community, when we look at the current situation, I think you have a lot of personal experience with techno-nationalism, because in recent days I paid a visit to the US, and my impression is that even in the University of Atlanta, I can feel the close association between techno-nationalism, not only in the cybersecurity or national security area, but even the medical area. Some medical professors of Chinese origin were put under scrutiny of FBI. So we are seeing the rise of techno-nationalism in the US. So you are with the Chinese Academy of Sciences. you must have a lot of international projects at your academy. In the past few decades, we embraced globalization. We had no difficulties with that. But in today's world, with the rise of techno-nationalism, how do you view this trend? Well, thank you for your question. After listening to the comments, let me briefly introduce our academy. We focus on natural sciences and high-tech research. So we registered very strong momentum in the past years. According to the Nature Index, CAS ranked at the top for 7 years in a row. So that testified to our rapid progress. But as you have said, we also felt the growing difficulties in the past 2 years when we engage in international cooperation, including personnel exchange and even some high-end equipment imports. We are encountering a growing number of difficulties. So techno-nationalism is a term used by some to describe these new developments. I think it is true that we are seeing some restrictions in the technology area, and so far we still have yet to see any signs of relaxation or liberalization. I think there are different reasons behind this phenomenon. In general, I agree with the point that the globalization as a trend is irreversible. For technology cooperation, the difficulties we encounter today will be temporary, and it will be part of the ups and downs we experience. The process of globalization in the past decades benefited quite differently of the members of the global community. Some countries believed they benefited a lot from globalization, others felt differently. So partly it's due to the different interpretation of the benefits brought about by globalization. So that can explain the reasons behind the emergence of techno-nationalism. For example, this morning, President Schwab said that 30 years ago, China's GDP accounted for 2% of the global GDP. He mentioned 20% this morning, but I would put it at 15 to 16% of China's GDP to the global GDP. But nonetheless, it still reflected the rapid growth of China over the past several decades due to globalization. So by that, you mean that certain countries or regions felt being left behind. Although there are benefits for them, the only difference is that they benefited less than their counterparts, and they somehow felt it has been unfair. Yeah, that's part of the reason. And second, in the past few decades, a lot of the growth was driven by the growth of technology, especially ICT. But one prominent feature of ICT, especially internet, is a technology that transcends borders. It's very hard to control or restrict internet within your border. This gives rise to concerns over national security because unlike other conventional threats, cyberspace is a lot more difficult to control and defense against because the technology inherently transcends borders. And another reason is that the emerging technologies, including IoT or AI, and also 5G, would become mainstream technologies. And this also triggers some anxiety in certain regions because they are concerned that maybe they are being left behind with these new technologies in terms of standardization and also the technology availability. So my general comments is that those technology as the technology of the internet will transcend national borders, and the trend of globalization will continue. The difficulties we encounter will be temporary, and also in the future, we will need to further enhance integration or interdependence. For standard making, for example, it is not good for future development if we want to set the standards by ourselves. We have to include broader participation so that everybody will have a share of contribution to jointly bolster our common security. So this is how I see the way for the future growth. We need to renew our emphasis on win-win and collaboration, and also fully respect the legitimate security concerns to address the fundamental difficulties. So I think looking into the future, after a certain period of competition, we will come to the conclusion to go for cooperation to achieve win-win results. So I remain confident about globalization. Tomorrow, there are concessions we'll have to make, there are compromises we'll have to reach so that we can jointly build critical technologies and infrastructure. So, generally speaking, even for technology development, it will be very unlikely or unrealistic for you to stop the trend of technology. Indeed, because with technology comes standards, and with standards comes industry. And also, today's technologies are more complex and systemic, especially for ICT. I think looking ahead, ICT will play the most pivotal role in reshaping our future. Technologies like AI, which is very complex and has a very high degree of integration. For those technology to thrive, they will need to depend on ecosystem. For example, the industry of chips, computing chips. It's impossible for any single country to establish a monopoly over the manufacturing of chips because a single chip embodies technologies from a dozen countries. So this creates the necessary condition for countries to collaborate.
For the panel members, you all know that the recent case, I mean, is China's one of the largest technological company is called Huawei vis-a-vis United States. I mean, let me ask you, I mean, would you allow Huawei, I mean, to do network in 5G in Iran? I mean,
Sure.
Are they talking with you? I mean, on the 5G network? I mean,
Actually, when you speak about the national security and this kind of companies, we should pay attention that who said this. A country that have a law that its name is echelon, all countries know about that. They have an organization that its name is NSA. He is responsible for doing this kind of spying. They have many technologies and companies that do that, and it's legal in their country. When they say that Huawei breached the, for example, national security issue, it's not only a security issue. We believe that all kind of this technology have some backdoors. Huawei maybe have, and also, for example, other companies.
They all have it.
Yes, all of them have, maybe. I do not say fact. I haven't any, for example, documented, but maybe all of them have this. This kind of rival match between them. And actually, we should define the national security based on some other facts, same as what our friend said that we should define the national security in other. We should accept that technology are arrive in our country, and cyberspace is a fact. Industry 4 will be coming, AI, 5G, all of them is a part of our living day, and we should have our strategy. When technology in other fields grows, then security field should grow. We should define other border for ourselves. We should change our strategy about that. When we decided to stop, for example, Huawei, who will come to our country? Another company will come and do their job for others. Then it's not a fact that, for example, they are doing something against us. We should have our law, our regulation. We should have a good agreement with them that if we know that you're doing a spy in our country, we will fine you, not before they want to come and say that you are spying and I do not allow you. If we want to say that, then we should block all companies to arrive our country and block ourselves, because we haven't this kind of technology. Many countries haven't. For example, in the world, how many countries have the technology of 5G? Today, for example, in Sweden, Ericsson. In Nokia, I'm not sure that Nokia is progressed enough to publish and announce their technology or not, and Huawei. ZTE also in China do some development on 5G. But it means that China, Finland, and Sweden have this kind of technology. Then France should say that we do not allow this kind of technology to arrive in our country. It's not a fact. The fact is something else, in my opinion.
Okay. So, Minister Natlin, I mean, do you have anything to add? I mean, to this?
I'll just add to what Pan said about borderlessness, about technology, right? Seamlessness.
Another border.
Yeah, it's actually innovation and hunger and desire to adopt technologies to benefit societies, for private sector to realize business outcomes. Everybody wants to do it. So from a positivity and desire and hunger to make a positive impact, everybody's game. So what that means is whatever temporary nature of impediments come in the way, people overcome that. Because eventually the benefit and the value creation is what matters. So I'll just second the fact that it is temporary and technology transcends borders. The one fact also I'll share is that we are a systems integrator. So we work with more than thousands of customers literally around the world, every country. In fact, I touch almost 25 customers a quarter, which means about 8 a month, which means about 2 or 3 a week. So when I have these candid conversations with the private sector, objectivity and transparency takes over.
Okay.
So, information is always, with technology it's easier, because technology enables you to see things through, objectively assess the scale capabilities, the security capabilities, the privacy capabilities. It's more quantitative science. So from an engineer perspective, I would say that objectivity and transparency can resolve these temporary challenges that the global economy is facing.
Okay. Nalan, I mean, anything to add?
No.
Okay.
No, I agree that it's temporary, it's bumpy, and it's important to raise the issues that aren't working so that the people can come together to have dialogue to find a path forward. And so the feeling the highs and the lows, the friction behind that dialogue, that's actually good. That means we're making progress. It's actually not a negative, it's a good thing. And so I think it's great that we're talking about it in events like this and others, and it'll continue, and some things will get easier and new issues will come to the table.
Okay. Pan 교授.
Okay, something from my side. Technology itself, that we should pay attention to its nature, that is a double-edged sword. And perhaps on this topic, we see more negative things coming out. For example, like the minister has mentioned, the thing about the security. We know the security is the issue that we need to work on the both sides, and we should not abandon it because it has a negative side. And also, we know there would be some phase for development. There would be some problems at this phase, or might be the other problems at different phase. And as for the AI or the other technology development, it brings challenges to the whole world. It's not only a technology thing, it will also raise the ethnic questions. So what we need to do is that we should take the control of the technology, and we need to use the technology to serve the best interest of human, and also to serve the best interest of all countries. We should not close the door. And one more thing, I think perhaps those problems occurred is because of the negative side about technology. Okay, now we have listened to the input of our panelists. So from the audience, do you have any questions to pop up to our panelists? If you got any questions or any comment, feel free to let us know. We've got like 10 minutes. So the lady over there, yeah, we have microphone for you. I have a question for Professor Pan. Just now, you've mentioned that in different countries, we have the barriers of technology. And one of the reasons is that we haven't set a common standard. Do you think all countries should be part of the standard setting for the new technology? And as for the Sino-US trade friction occurred recently, we know the standard is not there yet. So for this situation, do you think it will have some impact to the standard setting?
Because you are a company based in the United States. So the ongoing trade war actually lead to some kind of lack of communication between countries, especially between China and America. And at this very time that we are setting the standard for the future of our technology, so do you think that this trade dispute will have some kind of impact on the future of the technology and on the process while we are setting the standard for those technologies? Thank you very much.
판教授
So for Mr. Pan, please go first. Well, as for the standard setting, I think this is the solution. In the future, if we're going forward, it is a good thing that we can set the standard altogether. It will ease our worries. But how to do it, we need to discuss it. We haven't got a solution yet. So I think it would be also through competition. To a certain degree of competition, if we all have irreplaceable technology, so we cannot replace each other, so we need to work together. So you mean we should do it together, right? Yes, because I just mentioned the systematic technology, and if you have a technology and the other countries have a different one, and we put them together, we will have an entire system. And also you've mentioned the trade friction and its implication. Well, in my opinion, China, in the past, we haven't been able to independently develop our technology. But now we have a company that can independently develop a cutting-edge technology, a leading technology. Perhaps the world haven't got used to it. But it's okay, because it always takes time for you to get to used to something. So, some Chinese companies, Chinese R&D centers, we have the ability to develop some technology with ourselves. But this is not to say that we close the door. we are cooperating with the other countries, but we still have the ability to develop it on our own. And for sure, we will be able to lead in a certain technology development. And I believe if we're following this logic, we will see the cooperation in the long run. So it will take time for you to get used to it.
I'll share an example. You know, it is a global ecosystem, and partnerships and relationship building and collaboration does not need specific permissions. People talk to each other, they collaborate. I'll give you an example specifically in the Industry 4.0 space. So in Germany, the Secretary General of Industry 4.0, Dr. Henning Banthein and team, decided that there is an architecture, a reference architecture for Industry 4.0. It's called RAMI 4.0. So they wrote up this entire document, they built that in collaboration internally. But then in the US, I had Industrial Internet Consortium came up with the IIC reference architecture. Different architecture, two different architectures, two different ways of solving similar problem. So when they started talking, every year in Hanover Messe, we sit down, talk. These two standards can exist, coexist, but interoperability is where meaningful results happen. Especially because when you're dealing with a customer and a person who's using that technology, they are global in nature. They're everywhere. For me to work with a customer that doesn't have a plant in Europe or in Asia is very weird, right? It's usually a global footprint. Yeah. So for me, it's always in our best interest to have technology that is interoperable. And when people, smart people, educated people start talking to each other and collaborating, interoperability happens. So an example, the one that I use about Industry 4.0 is to say that many such examples can still happen. They are happening. In the private-public partnership, forums like the World Economic Forum is enabling those conversations. So it helps, it cannot be stopped.
Well, and I would just add that setting the standards, I mean, there's been huge cooperation in the past 25 years and will continue. There's the IETF, which is the Internet Engineering Task Force, where it's not one technology company or one government or one country deciding a standard. I mean, the IETF is absolutely multi-stakeholder. Many countries come together to make sure that the standards that are being adopted have interoperability and that will work around the world. And so there's actually a lot of great evidence of cooperation in setting standards. And again, I think the message is that we should continue that. It's critical to the success of the internet and technology moving forward. I mean, if we step back around from that, that would be a huge mistake. Yeah. And it is already happening, and we should continue to support that.
Okay, yeah. You have a question now? Okay.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. This question is for Mr. Minister Azari Jahromi, please. You mentioned that you have 2 unicorns coming out of Iran to $1 billion, which is amazing. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think contributed to the growth of these 2 unicorns? Was it government policy, private-public relationships, support from the government, or technology or infrastructure? Which one played the vital role in making these 2 startups successful?
The most important thing for them that they have this big growth was our market. It's the best and the shortest and the best answer. Why? Because technology is same. The government support in all the world is same.
Okay.
And the infrastructure also are same. But why they have this growth, the big growth during these 3 years? The first one is that we develop our network, our mobile broadband network in a whole country. From 100,000 subscribers, we reached to more than 70 million during these 3 years. It's a big jump. And the next one is the big potentiality that we have in our market for joining this kind of technology. And also young people that we have inside it.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. 下一个还有
So next question, anyone? I have a question for the minister. A week ago, the US has launched a network war to Iran, and you've mentioned that although US have tried very hard, but it never succeeded. And also, you said that in 2018, the firewall at the national level has stopped 33 millionth attack. So I would like to know how about the national firewall establishment in Iran? And another thing is that the US has not really succeeded even for a single time.
It's a good question, thank you. Actually, in Iran, we haven't a firewall. We have a mechanism for protecting our network in all layers. We say to these kind of procedures, engineers, tools, and procedures as DEJFA. We called it DEJFA. DEJFA means, yes, what you say.
What?
Actually, what I told was that somebody, it's not official, some newspaper announced that US attacked to our network and do something that they believe. I told that we are a victim of this kind of cyber attack, same as what happened in last year's, Stuxnet. It's very famous that they do that. They did that and announced that it's our job. And other attacks that they did every day. But actually, I told that our mechanism for protecting our network, our national network, our businesses from this kind of attack stopped 33 million kind of attacks, number of attacks from different kinds.
All from the United States?
No, no, from around
all over the world.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Same as all countries, we see that the most portion of these attacks belong to the southernest of the Asia, because many bots are there, and this kind of attacks managed by this kind of bots. When we pay attention to the IP's location, but when we pay attention to the managing of this kind of attacks, we find out that there is no interest for example, China to attack to Iran. Something else, we know that. Yeah. But actually, every day we detect many attacks, DDoS attack, DOS attack, spoofing attacks, SYN attack to our websites, our e-government services, our infrastructures, our routers. For example, in last year, we faced an attack that was successful. More than 20,000 of our routers was resetted in the same time. And a big part of our access network was have a big outage. And they put American flag on the routers and said that do not interfere, and write under that do not interfere in our election. The target of, I do not know when we interfere in US election, but the target was Russia and Iran. In some cases, they did something and they were successful. But from last year till now, we developed our security elements of our network. We updated the mechanism, the tools. We trained the new engineer to stop this kind of attacks. That's all.
Okay, yeah. 我们大概还有
Okay, we still have time for the last question or maybe comment. I also have a question for the minister. Just now you've mentioned the issue of the backdoor, And Huawei has proposed the idea of signing the non-backdoor agreement. So how do you comment on that?
Explain that our experience show that there is backdoor in this kind of devices. Many reports are available in, for example, different vendors. I try to be more conservative to say the name of the vendors, but experience say us that there is. It's very important that we have this kind of agreement with vendors when we allow them to come to our country. For when announced, and it is not a secret that there is a backdoor. Somebody explore and find some backdoors on them. Then what we should do? We should have an agreement. It's a good strategy that followed by Huawei. We do not try to say that you have backdoors. We should be careful about our agreement with them. It's very important. Believe me that our experiences said that all of these companies have backdoors. But it's hidden. Maybe we cannot explore that, we cannot find that. But we should have our agreement with them that if we find this kind of backdoors on our network and in your devices, what we should do. Another issue is that we should be careful about our management network. The management network actually should be different from the public network. All devices have a port for managing themselves. It's very important that in the countries, for example, in Iran, we did that. In the infrastructure, we create a special LAN for them and plug all the management network to that. I think it's separated from the internet. It's not available from the internet. Maybe they have backdoors in another manner, but this kind of also procedure will make ours more secure than before. But in your answer, I think I should say that it's very important for us to have this kind of agreement instead of paying attention to this kind of news.
So, Minister, you're saying that, no matter what, I mean, a lot of companies, they have a network, they have backdoors. So if you find the backdoors, they will be penalized, I mean,
yes.
Right? Yeah, okay. Not beforehand, I mean.
And also we did something for preventing this kind of backdoors. I explained for you, for example, a special LAN for managing our network, because most this kind of backdoors are managing by the management port. This kind of procedure is done in our country and also in other countries, and also in many operators, they are doing that for protecting and preventing this kind of issues that they face to it.
Oh, okay. 正好呢，我们时间
Okay, I think time's up. So let's just give the round of applause to the panelists on stage.